What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, you are watching TWA Motorsports, and today, something you guys have been waiting for. We're gonna start the drop on the front of the truck. Now, like I said in the last video, when we did the steering wheel and the center console lid, I'm hoping to do this all in one video, but I know how OCD I am, and there's gonna be some stuff that I want to address that I think is gonna take me a couple videos to do, but we'll just see where we get. The first part of this, obviously, is the dismantling part, guys. We got to get some stuff apart. So as much as it's going to suck, we're going to have to take all our little clown hats off, is what I call them, on the front wheels, our spike caps. We're going to take those off. We're going to have to get that wheel off. Okay, there's no way around it. I'm going to have to get a jack over here, possibly a couple jack stands, and we'll just kind of see where we get. But that's the very first thing we need to start with. We got to get all this crap out of the way in order to get access to what we need to replace. Guys, look, we're going to be doing several things here. We're going to be doing, as of right now, I'm not doing brakes, which I was originally planning on. I told you guys, this is a very expensive project. So to do the front the way I'd like to do it, probably $3,000. When you think about spindles at like 500 bucks, upper and lower A-arms, those are, we'll call them 200 for the lowers, and that's per side, so that's another 400. About 100 a piece for the uppers, which we are going to be replacing the uppers. Shocks are about 160 bucks for both. What else we got here? The lowering keys, because we're going to crank down the torsion bars. Those are about 160 bucks. I'm going to be listing all the stuff I'm using in the description down below. Brakes, I would like to do brake lines, brake rotors, brake calipers. Golly, I'm like I said, guys, we're probably $3,000, to be honest with you, to do the front of this the way I'd like to, which is replacing everything. But I've chosen to keep the stock lowers for now. We're just going to replace the ball joints, which probably is going to, after replacing them, is going to make me wish I replaced the whole thing. We're going to probably keep the brakes. We're probably going to keep the hubs. I was going to replace all that stuff. So we'll just kind of see. I may change my mind as we get into it, and we may add stuff to the mix, but let's get it off the ground, get the wheel off. Here's what we got going on. Got it supported by jack stands, just enough to get this barely off the ground. And guys, these are not the lightest wheel, that is for sure. But I got the clown hats off. Now we're going to use our 34 millimeter, which is huge. And we're going to have to get all 10 of these off. Not looking forward to lifting this wheel. These wheels are not light, guys. Now that I got that out of the way, you can kind of see what we're dealing with. It's a mess. It's gross. Looks terrible. But look, I'm gonna take, and you can also see why I kind of would like to do the brakes at the same time. I probably will, to be honest with you guys. It's just so freaking nasty, and so many bolts. I mean, we had 10 to keep that on. We got another 8 to keep this on the hub, and then another 8 to get the spacer off, because the dually pushes the wheel out. So let me get these. I think these are 3/4. See if we can get these off. I don't know how easy this guy is going to come off. It seemed like it wasn't too bad going together. I'm going to go ahead and knock that out, both there and here. Wow, did that take a lot longer than I thought it would. These things are stubborn. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and move on. I've got a pair of needle nose pliers here. We're going to attempt to get this line out. This is for the ABS. There, we got it. And we're going to use our pry tool. Like right here, we can get this out by, should be able to release it, you know, with the flat blade. And then up here, there's a plug-in. Okay, you can see that up top, but it is also stuck in the side here. We should get that clip out, and we should hopefully be able to get this one out also. And we'll just move that out of the way. Next two things I'm going to take loose. Need a 10 millimeter. We're going to take this off the top of the spindle, and we're going to take this brake hose off, so when we get the caliper loose, we can get it out of the way. Now all these bolts that I'm taking out, I'd like to clean. So what I'm going to do is, as I go, is I'm going to take these over to the bench grinder. These are actually both the exact same. We'll take them over to the bench grinder, clean them off with the wire wheel, and we're gonna paint those amongst some of this other stuff. But now that we got that loose, we're gonna see if we can get the caliper off next. So what we'll do is we should be able to turn this guy and get to what looks like an 18 millimeter, unless we want to just go ahead and remove it from down here. So if I do it this way, chances are it'll be a little lighter, but I don't know. I'm gonna be replacing the brake lines. There's just no way around it. They're gonna make me nuts. So for now, I'm gonna put a bunch of tension on them. Let's see what size this is. Let's get these bolts out. I'm gonna take them out separately. So the caliper to the bracket, those are 18s. Oh, there's sliders too. Interesting. Okay, so we'll get those out of there. Set those to the side. We'll clean those up. And then, will this come off? Probably gonna have to have a pry bar. Pry bar definitely makes your life easier. All right. Actually, that touches the ground without putting any kind of slack on that. Now, these things are so caked with dirt and junk, I don't even know what size they actually are. Use a little flathead to clean them up. This is a 19. They are bigger than a 19. I'm gonna say a 21. Let's see what else the 19 may fit. Nope. Okay. Nope. So we don't need the 19 over here. They are 21 millimeters. I'm gonna attempt to get it on straight here without the swivel, because it gives, I have more power with the impact that way, but I may have to use the swivel. All right, so we're gonna get to loosen those up with the breaker bar. Brakes don't look terrible. The calipers don't actually look too bad. Okay, that was rough. Breaker bar, got them loose. Took them off with the impact once I got them loose. So now let's get the rotor out of the way. And in order to do that, normally you may have a set screw in here, but this has these little keepers. I'm gonna have to use a pair of side cutters to get those off. I got those off, but the rotor is not wanting to come off. So since I'm gonna be replacing it, I've decided I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna move on to getting the upper and the lower ball joints loose. Okay, this one's an 18, the bottom one's a 24. And I'm gonna loosen them up all the way down to the bottom. And while I'm beating on this, maybe that'll help knock these joints apart, both the bottom and the top. We're gonna have to do that anyway. I think it could help. So let's go get an 18, a 24. Let's get those out. Now the 18 and the 24 shouldn't be that tight. So let's give it a shot here. Yeah, that's what I thought. So we're gonna pull this all the way down to the bottom. Not take it off completely. Get it down to the bottom. Yeah, I think we're pretty good there. We're gonna do the same thing with the 24 on the bottom, and then we're gonna start beating the living crap out of this, and hopefully me hitting this will help knock this loose, but if not, we're gonna be hitting it there and then on the bottom as well. Now, like I said, we're gonna try to get the rotor off. I'm gonna have to move the camera because that's the area I'm gonna be needing to swing. But I'm hoping that some of this banging will help separate those ball joints. Now I could use a pickle fork since I'm going to be replacing, but I'm going to have to get a better swing on that from basically where your camera's at. This did exactly what I thought it would do. Me beating the crap out of the rotor to get it off, which now we have to replace it. Loosen that. You guys, I don't know if you can see that, but I still got to loosen the bottom one. I'm going to hit on it a little bit. I just got it too, actually. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to get the tie rod loose. Let's move it over here. And I think it's a 21 also. Let's take a look here. It is a 21. So we'll do the same thing there. We'll get that one loose. And get it out of the way. We're going to be replacing that so you can hit on the top of it. If you weren't replacing that, obviously don't do that. So now we need to get our 18 off. Should be able to push this down. I don't have to use, so I probably should have used some WD-40. It's so globbed up with junk that it's not going to come off. But once we get that off, then we'll also get the bottom one off and get this out of the way, at least for now. I can't even get this on it now. Uh-oh, it's spinning. I'm gonna have to grab something to hold it. We'll get it. At the bottom. Just the top that's the problem. Had enough room to get just a pair of needle nose in there, vice grips. And it's off. So, I need to go do the same thing to the other side, but before I do, I think I'm going to take the sway bar loose, and that feels like a 13. Put a 18 on it and make sure, but it's definitely not an 18. Maybe a 15. So on it, you may have to grab those same needle nose. To me, that's the easiest way, and just hold the top together here while we're zapping the bottom with the impact. That should be good. Let's go grab a 15. Need pretty quick work of that. Look, I'm going to be replacing that. I'll be listing all the stuff I'm using in the description. Depends on how far we get in this video if we start going back together. So now, I really need to take the spindle apart. And I think I'm going to buy new hubs, like what you see down here. The hub is the center section. But I need the 15s out of it. So either way, whether I decide to keep this one, which I don't think I will, and put it on the other spindle, or I buy a new one, I'm still going to need these. I believe they're 15 millimeters. We're going to need those out of there. So this is the easiest time to get them. Fight me coming apart. That's fine. These are also bolts that I'm going to clean up both ends of, the threads and the heads. Probably put a coat of paint on them. I'm sure that it's coming apart. Not as bad as I thought. Now the next thing I'm going to be removing before I get to the upper A-arm is I'm going to take this inner fender liner out. And I'm going to do that for a couple reasons. One, I want to clean it really well and I want to respray it. But the other reason is it gives you a little additional room for like painting the frame and just kind of moving around and doing stuff. So I've got several of these to pull out. I'm using this little clip removal tool. It generally works pretty good. I'll probably end up replacing these because they're all pretty worn out. A lot of them are cracked and broken. I like that one. So let's get this guy out. After we pull, I don't know, a couple hundred of these out, it feels like. Get it out of the way. And I'll kind of show you my trick for cleaning this up. In the past, I've just scrubbed them with a brush, but there's a lot of tar on this one that we need to get off. And so I'll show you how I do that later. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a 21 millimeter and we're gonna pull the bottom of the shock loose and a 15 at the top. Let's get the 21 knocked out first. I didn't get this quite all the way out. And you don't have to support this. I know it's odd because normally you would have a spring, you'd have a ton of pressure here, but you don't necessarily have to support this. As a matter of fact, I'm not even gonna loosen this anymore. We're gonna go on to the top. We're gonna get the top loose. We're gonna have to hold it with something in the center, and I'm gonna use a 15 ratcheting wrench to get the top loose. Once we get that 15 loose, should be able to move this around and get this out now. There we go. We will be replacing this, obviously. But another bolt that we're gonna be cleaning up will be this bottom one that went through the bottom of the shock. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mark, I need to pull these out. This generally means it's never been aligned before if those are in there. But I need to mark kind of, here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm gonna mark this on both sides, but basically where this is lined up. And this will help me determine getting it close when we go back together. Still gonna need alignment, but it'll get you way closer. So I'm gonna mark that on the inside and outside, even though they correspond. I'm gonna mark that on both of these, and I'm just gonna use a pair of pliers to pull this piece of plastic out. It should be pretty brittle. And then we'll need a 21 millimeter to get these loosened. And what I like to do is I set them over to the side, kind of out of the way, the same way they came out. So the front to the front, the back to the back. We are gonna be replacing these. So what I'm gonna do, instead of painting these and cleaning these up, I've got new ones coming, and we'll be able to put them side by side and mark them one by one as we go back together. Sometimes you need a little WD-40 on these, sometimes you don't. I generally start with just a wrench, 21 millimeter wrench, and loosen them from the inside. Generally the outside doesn't spin because they're slotted, and you'll see that the pressure starts to drop off this arm. You'll also notice that the bushings are just completely gone. The bottom ones look pretty good, which is one of the reasons I've decided to keep the stock lowers and just replace the ball joint. And actually, the ball joint on the passenger side looks to have been replaced before. So what we'll do is we'll get this completely loose. And you could use an impact on this if you wanted. Watch how much comes off pressure-wise when we get this one loose. This arm should drop. You'll see it in a second. There it went. And like I said, take these out, place them just the way they come out. So this bolt comes in this way, this one comes in this way. Keep this eccentric, these two together. Same thing on the other side, and set them. I like to set the back one further back, front one a little closer, so I know what goes where when we're ready to go back together. Now we can take this A-arm out of the way. We got a couple more things to remove, and then we got some cleaning to do, guys. We need to get a 15 millimeter and take the worn off bump stop off. There's no more bump stop remaining. I guess it's just deteriorated over time. And then we also need to get, I'm gonna take this off the lower A-arm. I can't even see it here. This guy right here, this bracket for the shock, I'm gonna take that off, give me a little more room, make that a little bit easier to paint and clean. At this point, I'm gonna use a scraper to scrape some of the like built up chunks of junk on like where the upper A-arms mount, some of the areas down here on the bottom A-arm, basically just a scraper. And then I'm gonna vacuum up. There's a bunch of junk in the inner fender here. And then guys, I think we're gonna move on to maybe the lower ball joints, getting those pressed in. I'd like to do that before I paint, I think. Oh, there's a stick. Oh no, that's a dirt dauber nest. Okay, we don't need that. Lots of stuff going on in here. When I say a scraper, just something like that, you can see what I'm talking about. There's just a bunch of buildup of grease from this being greased over the years. And paint's not gonna wanna stick to that very well. So we'll give it a good clean up with the scraper. Probably go over it eventually with a Scotch-Brite in the areas I'm gonna paint anyway. Look, I'm going to be using POR 15 on the frame just like I did everywhere else. And it will basically stick to dirt, but let's get some of the big stuff off first. I'm going to go, like I said, grab my vacuum and vacuum up the junk that's in the inner fenders and sweep this out a little bit. Now having this upper A-arm out of the way is going to definitely help when we're trying to get this lower ball joint out. Sometimes it gets in the way. So you can see I've got a bigger cup on the bottom. You need a cup bigger than the actual piece itself. And then what I'm going to attempt to do is we're going to see if we can use this to press that guy out. We'll see what happens. I'm going to try not to use anything up top. It may go bad on me, I don't know, we'll see. We end up having to use a cup at the top. We'll see how tight it is. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to use one. That's not gonna work. It's not flat enough on top. Let's see if we can find something to sit on the top of that. Trying to find the right cup attachment has proven to be kind of a pain. I got one, I got it cranked down. It doesn't act like it's moving a lot. So I don't know. We're gonna keep experimenting with cup sizes here. Problem is, it's got to be pretty big to clear this boot, but small enough to fit on the arm. That's always fun. So the plot thickens. I've pressed and pressed on this, and it doesn't want to move. And I got my flashlight out, looking at the bushings. And guys, the bushings are actually pretty trashed. I thought they were good, but I was only looking at one side of them. So what I think we're gonna end up doing is we're probably gonna replace the lowers too. Like I said, I like to do things a certain way, and so we're just gonna continue to tear stuff down. Now, in order to get the lowers off, I'm gonna have to get the torsion unloading bar tool. So basically it's a tool that fits in the bottom, and I can get it at my local, I don't have one. I just get it from a local parts store, you can rent it. And we're gonna run the torsion bars out. Once we get the torsion bars out, I'm going to then take the lower A-arm off. And aside from the inner and outer tie rod, which I'm gonna be replacing as well, I was only gonna do the outer, but the inner looks pretty grody, so I'm gonna go ahead, I've ordered some of those. We'll get that off, and then we'll probably take the sway bar off, and I'll kind of run you through this stuff as we do it. But then we'll have everything out of place, and we can kind of start the cleaning process. I want to clean up here. I want to knock some of this junk off the frame, and then we're going to POR 15 here, and just basically clean up here. Next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the torsion bar out. Okay, you're going to have a torsion bar unloading tool. That's what this guy is. I'm going to show you how that installs in a minute, but I like to position these things a certain way. Okay, so I've had people reach out to me, especially in the Tahoe days, in the like 2000 to 2006 Tahoe, and they're like, why is my SUV set so low? Well, look, you put a 2-inch spindle in, that's pretty dummy proof, right? You just take the spindle off, put it back in. However, when you're putting the keys back in, you could potentially rotate this the wrong direction, causing it to not load up like it's supposed to. So what I like to do here, and you don't necessarily have to do this, you do you, I'm just telling you what I do. I'm gonna mark the bottom of this. See this opening right here? We'll consider this the bottom. I'm gonna mark that. And then the other thing I'm gonna do, and it probably doesn't matter, but I'm gonna write DF for driver's side front in that opening right there. And I'm gonna put that back in the exact same way it comes out. But now we're gonna mark the back of it. I'll probably do that once we get the torsion bar loose. Let's go under there and look at what we need to do. Now, about midway in the truck, you're gonna see your torsion key. Part of our drop's gonna come from this. So what we need to do is there's an opening. I don't know if you guys can see that little indentation right there. That is where we're gonna load that tool up. And what happens is we're gonna tighten that tool, and that's gonna push that key up in order for us to get the bolt and the retainer out. You see that? So what I'm gonna do, you could probably be a good idea to spray some WD-40 on this, depending on how long it's been in. But once we get that tool in there and get the pressure off this, we should be able to loosen this relatively quickly. This is what it looks like installed. There's also an opening at the top, like a hole in the top for it to set in. I've already tightened it up, relieved the pressure, and you can see that I've taken the bolt and the keeper out. It's an 18 millimeter. This guy's pretty big. It's a 1 inch, but it just depends on what tool you're using. So now we can run this down, and as we run this down, that torsion bar is gonna, the key is gonna swing out, and then we'll have to probably use a hammer or something to tap the torsion bar forward to get it loose. Got the old torsion key out. Now you can kind of see where we were. This is where the bolt goes in, and then this is where the tool goes in. So you can see when you push it up with the tool, it unloads it. You can get that bolt out, and then you loosen it up. Had to spray a bunch of WD-40 around this. We had to beat on it for a while to get it out, but it's out. And look, you can't get the torsion bar completely out until you get the A-arm off, right? So we're gonna have to take the A-arm loose. Once the A-arm's loose, then we can pull the A-arm off and hopefully push the torsion bar out of it. The only other option is to take the torsion bar cross member out, and I really don't want to do that. So let's see if we can get the bolt size on this lower A-arm. I'm not exactly sure why GM does it this way, but inside, bolt head, 18 millimeter. Outside, nut, 24 millimeter. I don't get it, but we need to get those out next. Probably gonna do that with the impact, to be honest with you. And notice that they both go through pointing to the back, and they're different sizes. So the back one is obviously, look how wide that arm is back here. That bolt's gonna be wider than this guy up here. So just kind of make sure you set those kind of like we did our cam plates, front and back. A-arm is out and on the ground. So we need to go duplicate that exact same thing on the other side so we can get it out, and then we will move on to getting the tie rod loose, the inner here, and the sway bar off. And then we will hopefully have everything dismantled that we need before we start cleaning, painting, and going back together with new stuff. Cone just took the splash shield off the front, just 415 millimeters. And the reason we did that is you gotta have it out of the way to get the sway bar off, which is our next step. We already got the end links loose, so we need to get these guys loose. Feels like a 13 millimeter. Got the sway bar end link off, and so all it was is 4 10 millimeters. Or sway bar end link, the sway bar, sorry. End link's already off. I'm gonna repaint this. I'm gonna just scuff it up and paint it out with just some Rust-Oleum. Nothing crazy, but I've got some new bushings and new end links coming. Obviously, it's a good time to replace all that. Last thing we need to do here is we need to unbolt our inner tie rod. Guys, I don't know how stiff this is gonna be. They generally put Loctite on it. You're just gonna have to use a big wrench. I think it's like a 32 or 36 millimeter. I'm using an all 16ths. Ooh, it won't even go that big actually. I'll have to go I've got a bigger one over there. But there is a hex nut on the inside. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's covered in grease, which is another reason why I'm replacing this. We're gonna have to get that loose because I've got a new one coming. Now I took a little super clean and cleaned this area here and kind of up and around, but I'm sitting here thinking, do I want to take the brake line loose? I think I may. I think that's a 13 millimeter. We'll take that loose so we can pull it back a little bit. But other than that, I'm gonna go get a Scotch-Brite pad. I'm gonna Scotch-Brite just kind of this area, and guys, I'm gonna go over this relatively quickly. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. That, like I said, that POR 15, it sticks to just about anything. So I'm just mainly wanting to get maybe some dirt that I missed. I'm not going to worry about going all the way across the top of the frame. Obviously, we got brake lines and fuel lines in the way, but you know, try to make it look equal to what we did on the side and whatnot. And as you can see where I ended up front. So spend a little time here. I might time lapse a little bit of the painting, at least on this side. And then before I paint it, after I Scotch Brite it, I'm going to spray it with some brake clean, let it dry, go to the other side, do the same thing. And then I might even wipe it down with some alcohol before I go over it, but we'll just have to see. But yeah, that's really where we're at. We got everything off that we need off, and we're ready to paint and then hopefully start going back together. At this point, it's go time. We've got some POR 15. I'm going to have to use probably, I don't know, 2 coats. But like I said, we're just going to kind of sneak around this stuff. If we get it on the lines, it's not that big a deal. This stuff, I put it in my own cans because a lot of times it's super hard to get out of the old can if you get any on the rim. So what I do is I go to my local parts store and get some paint cans and kind of divvy it out when I open a fresh can. But I'm going to time lapse some of this. It just depends on where I can get my camera, and we'll go from there. Well, after a couple hours spent on both sides, we got that. I also had Cam's out here helping, and he scuffed up the torsion bars, and I painted those. I kind of painted them half of them. I'm going to flip them over tomorrow, paint the other half. I don't know, guys. Probably 1 coat would do it, but I'm probably going to go back and put a 2nd coat on it. I'm going to paint the brackets for the brakes when I take... we're going to be replacing the brake lines. So when I do that, I will replace the brackets for the brakes at that point. But it's coming along.